Okay, so we have now officially reached that point where we're getting into the original starting point of X-Men Age of Apocalypse. Now, the reason why I'm saying the original starting point, because, okay, when it came to Marvel Comics, in the early days of them working on this event, they gave us X-Men Alpha. And X-Men Alpha was the original starting point where if you're going to sit down and read Age of Apocalypse, you start here and then go forward in other books to kind of help you explore this brand new world that Marvel gave us. But then, at the tail end of them working on this event, they gave us a bunch of preludes that took place before X-Men Alpha to kind of get a better idea of what the world was like before you got into X-Men Alpha. But we already covered all those books. And so now we are able to officially dive into X-Men Alpha #1. Now, the opening pages of the storyline does an amazing job to kind of show us what this world is like by this point in its timeline. Like, for example, by this point in its timeline, when it comes to Apocalypse, he's now the ruler of North America. Now, remember, for Apocalypse, he's really big on survival of the fittest. The strong may live, the weak may die, the strong may lead, the weak must follow. But the problem is right now, he believes humans are weak. Now, most of the humans in North America, they were able to escape and head over to Eurasia. But most of the humans, not most, some of the humans had stayed behind in North America. And so because of that, you now have Apocalypse just going around to different areas of North America and having coaling events, allowing his people to wreck different cities across North America. And so when it comes to Seattle, it has now been officially wrecked by Apocalypse forces. And so there are dead bodies everywhere. But then we pick up with this mysterious character as he walks around Seattle and he realizes that Seattle is completely wrecked. But then he runs into a young girl, a human girl. Now, this young human girl, she was trying her best to get away from the Infinites. And I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly for the whole idea of the forces of Apocalypse. But either way, the Infinites had killed off her parents. And their main goal now is to kill off this young girl, who is a human. Now, you do have our mysterious character go out of his way to protect this young girl. And we do learn here that he is a mutant. Now, the only reason why we know that he is a mutant because you do have the leader of this group of Infinites go ahead and use their powers on our mysterious character. But then he was able to absorb the powers of that person. But you didn't have this leader realize our mysterious character is trying to protect this young girl. And he has no idea why this mysterious man is trying to protect a human. But either way, they believe that he must die now. But at the very last second, he was saved by Magneto's X-Men. Now remember, when it came to this reality, it all came out of Legion Quest. Now, just in case we do have anybody joining our coverage when it comes to Age of Apocalypse, I kind of want to explain where this event came from. So there was a storyline called Legion Quest, and you had Legion go back in time to kill off Magneto because he believed that if Magneto was not around, then most likely Charles Xavier would have been able to achieve his lifelong goal. The whole idea of like, hey, mutants and humans should be able to live together in harmony. The problem was that when it came to Legion, when he went back in time, he didn't kill off Magneto. He killed off Charles Xavier on accident. And so with the death of Charles Xavier, it had brought in a brand new timeline. Now, before Charles had died, he had asked Magneto to carry on his dream. And Magneto said yes. Now, for Magneto, he really did try his best to carry on Charles' dream. He's like, hey, you know what? Humans, we should try to live together in harmony. But the problem is humans are always going to be scared of mutants. Humans are always going to hate on mutants. And so because of those two things, Magneto gave up and said, you know what? Fine. I'm going to go out of my way to open up a school where I am able to train young mutants and teach them how to control their powers, how to use their powers out there in the world to help out other people. Now, when it came to Magneto in that school, that took place 5 years ago from this point right here. We had learned that from our preludes leading into X-Men Alpha. But for Magneto back then, he knew that sooner or later his X-Men would have to fight against Apocalypse to stop Apocalypse from trying to take over the entire world. But also it's Magneto realizing that innocent humans are being killed off because of Apocalypse. Now, with all that being said, getting back into the present day, we do get a lot of cool pages of the X-Men going out of their way to fight against the Infinites. And for me, it is a great battle. It's cool to see all these different members of Magneto's X-Men just wrecking these guys. You have Iceman, you have Sabretooth, Blink, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Wildchild. You have Morph, Storm, Quicksilver. Like, this team is stacked. And you do have this team being able to get rid of all the different members of this group of Infinites in a matter of like seconds or even minutes. But either way, once the battle is done, you have Magneto feel a tad bit sad. And the reason why, because even though the X-Men do stand victorious once again in one of their battles against the forces of Apocalypse, is the whole idea the war still continues on. Many humans had died in this war, and possibly even mutants as well, because again, survival of the fittest. But either way, it's Magneto kind of wondering, like, when are they going to be officially able to bring down Apocalypse and finally bring hope back into this world? Because right now for Magneto, all he sees around him in Seattle is a bunch of dead bodies. But now it's time for us to figure out who in the world is this mysterious character. And so once you have our mysterious character take off his hood, we kind of find out it's Bishop. Now remember, when it came to the tail end of Legion Quest, when you had Legion going out of his way to kill off Magneto, he did kill off Charles Xavier, creating a brand new timeline. But after that, you had Legion and the other X-Men who were around Legion be sucked into some kind of time hole and most likely placed in a different part in time. But the problem was Bishop was stuck in the past still. He was part of this brand new timeline coming to life. And so this is Bishop from the original Marvel timeline. But he does remember Magneto, and he says, it's your fault. It's your fault we're here right now. Now for Magneto, he has no idea what in the world Bishop is talking about, because again, this is a brand new reality. A reality where Magneto only briefly met Bishop right before you had Legion kill off Charles Xavier. Now you do have Magneto go out of his way to use his powers to shut down the mind of Bishop as a way to knock him out. Now you do have the X-Men wonder, like, hey Magneto, do you actually know this guy? Now at first he says no, but the rest of the team realize, like, no, he actually knows who that guy is. But now we have to jump over to, well, Hank McCoy. Now with no Charles Xavier around, Hank McCoy was recruited by Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister. And so he became Dark Beast, this very sick version of, well, the original Beast. Now we see Dark Beast running some experiments on Blob, but you do have Blob being able to break free and begin to attack Dark Beast. Now luckily for Dark Beast, you do have Cyclops and Havoc arrive. Because again, in this reality, with no Charles around, Mr. Sinister was able to adopt both Havoc and Cyclops and raise them as his own sons. Now, with that being said, in this reality, when it comes to Havoc, he does not like Cyclops at all. He kind of feels like his brother gets better treatment from Mr. Sinister than he does. And technically, that is true. But while you have the two brothers being able to work together to stop Blob, you then have Mr. Sinister walk into the room to have a one-on-one conversation with Cyclops to kind of continue the whole idea of why Havoc truly does hate his brother a whole lot. Now with this one-on-one conversation, it's really more of the whole idea of Mr. Sinister kind of telling us two things. One, he is one of the horsemen of Apocalypse by this point in the timeline, but two, it's also him saying like, listen, I feel like the course that Apocalypse is taking is the wrong course, meaning that he believes that sooner or later the world is going to end because of Apocalypse. And if that happens, then Mr. Sinister is not able to enjoy something that he calls hell. That apparently he had created hell on Earth somewhere here, and he feels like if the world ends, then most likely he will not be able to enjoy the hell that he had created. And so he tells Cyclops that he has to go. And that's really it. He walks away. But we also get reminded that in this reality, we had learned one of the preludes that for Angel, he has a nightclub known as Heaven. Now, when it comes to Heaven, it is a neutral ground for both mutants and humans, meaning that mutants nor humans are allowed to attack the other side if they're inside the club. Now, while you have Angel just going ahead and welcoming everybody in for the night, you then have Gambit arrive. Now, by this point in the timeline, we have to remember that for Gambit, he lost Rogue to Magneto. The man truly did love Rogue a lot, but unfortunately, she had chosen Magneto. Now, with all that being said, Gambit got word that Magneto needs to talk to him. So it's Gambit saying, hey, Angel, you know where Magneto is at. And so I need that info really badly so that I am able to find Magneto. And you have Gambit say, you owe me one for what happened down in Louisiana. And so just like that, you have Angel say, fine, I will tell you where you can find Magneto. Now, I kind of want to go ahead and jump over to the X-Men, really more Rogue and Magneto, because like I said earlier, when it came to Rogue, she chose Magneto over Gambit. And really, by this point in the timeline, those two characters were able to come together and have a child together. And you have Magneto and Rogue name the child Charles Xavier. Sorry, just Charles, not Xavier. But either way, he is named after Charles Xavier. Now, here's the thing, because we have to remember, for Rogue in this reality, she did not absorb the powers of Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. She had absorbed the powers of Polaris. And that right there is really important, because you have Magneto teach Rogue how to use the powers of Polaris to kind of build herself or create a magnetic field around her to kind of allow her and Magneto to touch one another. But the problem is that their child does not have that ability yet. And so unfortunately for Rogue, she's not really able to touch her son like she really wants to, like she can with Magneto. But you did have Rogue and Magneto pay a visit over to Bishop. Now, this is Bishop still trying to tell everyone else around Magneto, like, you need to tell them, Magneto, what exactly happened to Charles Xavier. Tell them the crimes that you had committed. Now, for Magneto, he's not really trying his best to explain how he knows Bishop. Really, he's trying to pretend he has no idea who Bishop is or what Bishop is even talking about. But you do have Magneto go out of his way to knock out Bishop once again. But he then tells Rogue, hey Rogue, use your abilities to absorb the memories of Bishop so that we are able to learn more about him and what he is truly talking about. But now we have to jump over to the base of Apocalypse, the Temple of Apocalypse. Now, when we do, we are being introduced to a few other characters who are technically horsemen of Apocalypse as well, like, for example, Abyss. And you also have Holocaust appear as well. Now, remember, Holocaust is the son to Apocalypse. But the thing is, we have no idea who Holocaust's mother truly is. But either way, you do have all three come here for a very good reason, because for Apocalypse, it's now time to attack all humans across the globe. Now, here's the thing, because when it came to Apocalypse, he has signed the Kelly Pact. And the thing was, the Kelly Pact was supposed to bring peace or hope between the mutants and the human race, the humans and Apocalypse forces. But it's Apocalypse saying like, listen, I may have signed that pact, but in reality, I still feel like humans should die completely. And so it's Apocalypse saying, I have soldiers around the world just waiting to attack, waiting for the right moment. And right now, this is the right moment. Now, for Mr. Sinister, he knows if Apocalypse goes out of his way to attack these humans, then most likely it's going to lead into a genetic war. But now we have to jump over to London. Now, like I said earlier, most of the humans in North America, they had escaped and went over to Eurasia, but some still stayed behind. But right now, we're picking up with two characters, Wolverine and also Jean Grey. Now, in this reality, these two characters got together, but also this section right here is going to lead into a series called Weapon X in the Age of Apocalypse timeline, where it will give us the ability to follow these two characters around in this world. Now, you do have these two characters meet up with the Human Council. Now, the Human Council are trying their best to find the best way to stop Apocalypse, to regain control of their world. That even means working with mutants they truly do not like at the moment. And so you have Wolverine and Jean Grey meet up with Moira McTaggart and also Bolivar Trask. But either way, it's the two characters saying like, hey, you have info that could possibly help us. Now we do learn that our two heroes got that info from Mr. Sinister. Weapon X, Wolverine, and also Jean Grey, they are working for Mr. Sinister. Now for Jean Grey, she's kind of wondering if they can truly trust the man. But you have Weapon X say, listen, we have no choice. But on top of that, if he loses you, then he has no plans at all. And so with that being said, we can trust him because without you, he loses everything. But this kind of leads into us going back over to the X-Men. Now, you have Rogue getting ready to touch Bishop. Now, before she does touch Bishop, you have Magneto use his powers to kind of give Rogue an extra magnetic shield or biomagnetic shield around her so that she won't be able to absorb too much from Bishop to allow him to stay alive, but to also learn everything about Bishop the best she can. Now, here's the problem though, because while you have Magneto trying to use his powers on Rogue to protect her, when she does touch Bishop, it also allows Magneto to look into the mind of Bishop to begin to see visions of the old reality. And so that right there tells Magneto that most likely this world is completely wrong, that this world should not even exist at all. Now, you do have Gambit arrive and being able to push Rogue out of the way to free all three characters. After all of that, you have Magneto realize what he has to do because what he saw in the mind of Bishop. And so you have Magneto summon Nightcrawler and say, Nightcrawler, I need you to go out of your way and find your mother. Go find Mystique. We need her help pronto. So you have Nightcrawler leave. But after he leaves, you then have Gambit wondering why in the world did Magneto call him here for? But Magneto does not tell Gambit why he's here for. Instead, you have Rogue realize that there's now a possibility that Magneto will begin to chase the visions that he saw in the mind of Bishop. And so it's her kind of wondering, is Magneto's head still straight? Like, can Magneto still lead them to fight against Apocalypse? Or will Magneto go out of his way to chase after these visions that he saw in the mind of Bishop? But now we have to jump over to Apocalypse. Now, when we do, it's really more of Apocalypse being very upset about the idea that Mr. Sinister had disappeared. And so with him being gone, it's him saying like, I don't like this at all. That most likely Sinister is up to something. But the question is right now, what could he possibly up to? But to close off today's video, we jump over to Rogue and also Magneto. Now, this is Rogue telling Magneto like everyone is here. They're ready to hear your words. Now, this will lead into a bunch of different books that we have to cover to get the full idea of Age of Apocalypse. But it's also Rogue kind of wondering, will Magneto begin to follow the visions he saw when it came to Bishop's mind? Now, for Magneto, he tells Rogue no, but in reality, he's going to. Now, we also learned that for Magneto, he has another problem coming to him very soon from outer space that's heading right now towards Earth. And we're kind of left to wonder what that could possibly be. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.